Good morning, everyone. My name is County Councillor Carl Lewis, and I have the pleasure of chairing this Planning, Taxi, Licensing and Right of Way Committee meeting today. We'll go to the first item on the agenda as usual, which is apologies. Would you, Carol, for apologies on the roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. So, Councillor Carl Lewis.
Present.
Councillor Gareth D. Jones. Councillor Tom Colbert has sent apologies. Councillor Angela Davis. Councillor Angela Davis. I can see her actually on the system.
Yeah, I can see Councillor Angela.
Councillor Deb Edwards.
Present.
Councillor Josie Ewing.
I believe she gave apologies.
She's showing that she's online, but Councillor Josie won't be able to participate in the meeting because she's not yet completed the mandatory training for this committee, but she might be here just observing. Councillor Harlan Hume.
Present.
Councillor Peter James.
Present.
Councillor Adrian Jones.
Present.
Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
Present.
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
Present.
Councillor Jeff Morgan. Not heard from Councillor Jeff. Councillor Gareth Pugh.
Present.
Councillor Edwin Roderick. Councillor Elwyn Vaughan. We've had apologies from Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson and apologies from Councillor Hugh Williams, who is on other council business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Carol. Councillor Angela Davis, please.
Apologies, Chair. Just wanted to say I'm here. I was having trouble getting my screen to enlarge, but I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. On to the second item of the agenda is minutes of the previous meeting, which were held on the 29th of June, 2023. They're pages 3 and 4. Could I have a proposer and seconder? Councillor Elwyn Vaughan to propose, Councillor Edward Roderick second. Thank you very much. On to item number 3, declarations of interest. A, to receive any declarations of interest from members relating to items to be considered on the agenda. B, to receive members' requests that a record be made of the membership of town and community councils where discussion has taken place of matters for the consideration of this committee. C, to receive declarations from members of the committee that they'll be acting as a local representative in respect to an individual application being considered by the committee. D, to note details on members of the County Council who are not members of the committee who will be acting as a local representative in respect to an individual application being considered by the committee. Takes us through that section. On to item number 4.1, updates. Has everyone had a chance to read the update that came through? If you haven't had a chance, please indicate in the room or on the screen. Okay, we can proceed. Our first and only planning application today is 23/0485/FUL, demolition of 4 blocks of 24 flats and erection of 4 blocks of 16 flats on all associated works at land at Pennebryn, Isle of Bryn, Ustergunnice. Taking us through this application is Catherine James, Senior Planning Officer. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. No.
Try that now.
Yeah, so it should be okay.
Is that okay now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Carol.
Oh, did I? I think I did I?
Is it sharing?
No, it's not sharing.
No. It's not. Oh, sure. Sorry. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So
Yeah, got it.
Sorry.
Councillor Edward, did you want to say something there?
No, just saying it's come up on screen, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
The application is an application made by Powys County Council on land owned by Powys County Council. It's an application for the demolition of 4 existing blocks of 24 flats and the erection of a replacement 4 blocks of 16 flats and all associated works. This plan shows the position of the development. It's the red cross there above at the word Astragunlice. It shows you the position of where it is within Astragunlice itself. The black line shows the development boundary for Astragunlice. Therefore, the site is within the development boundary. It's not a housing allocation site, but obviously it's an existing housing site with an established residential use. You can see the position of the site there in relation to Brecon Road coming down through here. And then the main town centre area is to the south down here. The wider aerial photograph shows again the position of the site. It's part of a much larger residential area within Astragunlice. The road here that you can see here is Isla Bryn, and this road is Penna-Bryn. So the site is located at the junction of Isla Bryn and Penna-Bryn. This picture is just a closer one showing you the existing layout of the site, which comprises the 4 T-shaped blocks. Again, I've got a plan here just to show the existing layout of how the 4 blocks are comprised. The existing development on site looks like this. This is the block. These are the blocks to the south of Isla Bryn. This is Isla Bryn running down here. That property down there would be sitting on Penna-Bryn. That's to the south. These are the blocks to the north of Isla Bryn. That's the more westerly block on Isla Bryn. This road here is Penna-Bryn. This shot is looking back up back along Isla Bryn in that direction. So this is just giving you a flavour. Those are the 2 blocks that are south of Isla Bryn, giving you a flavour of what the existing development looks like and provides. So the next plan we've got shows the block plan of the existing. These properties here outlined there, there's 3 properties. They are no longer owned by Powys County Council, and so they're privately owned. Am I going too fast?
No.
That's the existing block plan. And this is the proposed block plan. Can I put it down a bit? So you've got 4 blocks in the same way that they're of roughly the same dimensions as the existing block, but they're no longer T-shaped. They're set back from the road. This is Isla Bryn here. This is Penna-Bryn. So each block here comprises 2 units, and they will be provided with private garden area, a garden shed. There's 1 parking space per unit plus 6 visitor parking spaces across the whole site. These are the proposed elevational plans. The design of the buildings is such that all entrance doors face out to the front road of Isla Bryn. And that's been discussed with the Dyfed Powys police scheme, secure by design. So they've had a input into the overall design of the scheme. So each unit has a walk up to entrance. So it's got its own entrance, and they've got their own garden amenity space and a parking space, and they'll be provided with a garden shed as well. The housing density for the site, at the moment there's 24 units on site. That is being reduced to 16, which is a loss of 8 units. However, the justification for the project is that the current housing no longer meets the needs of housing in the area, and over 50% of people in the area on the Common Housing Register require 1-bedroom development. If we go on to the next slide, these are the floor plans. So each unit is a 1-bedroomed unit, and the density, so it's from 24 units being reduced to 16, and as I said, we're satisfied that is justified on the basis that it meets the housing need more appropriately. In terms of policy H4 and density, Chair, I'm sorry, there is a typing error in the report which reads it's a density of 64 units per hectare. It should actually be 53. So 16 units are being provided on 0.3 hectares. And so at a density of 53 per hectare, it accords with policy H4, which requires a minimum density of 27 units within a town area. These are artists' impressions of what the development will look like. You can see they will be in different coloured brick. They each have an entrance way. They'll have the parking to the front of the properties, and they have slate roofs with, I think it's aluminium windows. And there's a second view. You'll note here they're also being provided with small areas of garden in the front. The plot sizes across the 16 units vary from 88 square meters up to 147 square meters. That's the end of the presentation. We're satisfied that in terms of residential amenity, clearly it's an existing residential area. So the use has been established. The way the proposed development is set out and laid out, we consider that there's no problem with any loss of privacy or overlooking or loss of light, anything that we need to consider with residential amenity. With regard to highways, the Highways Authority initially made comments relating to the public walkway. That's been resolved through the submission of a amended plan, and Highways have no further objections. The site, notwithstanding it's an existing residential area, is on the site of coal mining area, and the contaminated land officer has been consulted. A preliminary phase 1 study was submitted, but the contaminated land officer felt additional information was required, and therefore has recommended the attachment of a number of conditions relating to contaminated land. Preliminary ecological surveys were also submitted. It was found that there was evidence of bats in the block that are south of Isle of Bryn. Therefore, an EPS licence will be required for the development. The report recommended a number of mitigation measures, and our ecologist has also considers the measures to be satisfactory. So subject to the attachment of a number of conditions relating to biodiversity gain, which will be in the form of the provision of bat boxes and bird boxes and insect boxes. The ecologist and NRW have no further objections. In terms of foul drainage, the site is obviously in a sewered area, and it is being, Welsh Water have confirmed that there's no problems with sewage capacity. Likewise, water provision is there and there's no problem with that. The fire authority made some comments about emergency provision, but as it's within the area of the public water provision, we don't anticipate that there would be a problem with that. The development is of a size where we are required to attach a condition relating to gigabyte broadband infrastructure. So we're recommending that the condition be attached accordingly. With regard to public open space, there is a small play area to the north along Pen y Bryn within very close walking distance, and there's a NEEP, which is the bigger form of, it's a neighbourhood equipped area, is across the road, across Brecon Road, but is within the buffer zone in the LDP. So again, we're satisfied that there is adequate provision for the development. So in light of that, Chairman, subject to the conditions, the recommendation is consent.
Thank you very much, Catherine. We'll go over to now to members for discussion, please. We'd like to open it up. Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm not sure whether my question's for Catherine or Peter. You mentioned the density of 1 to 27 houses per hectare. Is there any requirement for the number of bedrooms provided per hectare? As this development is reducing it from 48 bedrooms down by 2/3 to 16, which is quite a significant reduction in number of bedrooms. But just clarification on that.
There's no requirement for bedroom provision. It's on the basis of the number of units.
Properties. Yeah, okay, that's fine. When we're ready, Chair, I'm happy to move.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth E. Jones. Councillor Howland Hume, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is obviously addressing a housing need in Ystrad. We know we've had many reports come before us as members that the demand for 1 and 2 bedroom properties is now far greater than the larger size properties. So to see we as an authority are addressing a housing need is excellent. I'm pleased to see the green spaces provided for the residents. I did note the biodiversity enhancement, Catherine, and thank you for your presentation, and you know, a very detailed one as well at that. So, Chair, again, happy to second this as and when ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howland Hume. Councillor Edwin Roderick, please.
Oh, diolch cadeirydd. Just really, I'm quite concerned that they're only 1 bedroom actually, Chair, because 2 becomes 3 very quickly. I'm quite surprised knowing the area well. Obviously it is desperately needed, as I believe there are a lot of empty flats there which are not deemed to be habitable. So this is an excellent move on behalf of Powys. But as I said, my only concern is that they're just mainly 1 bedroom flats. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwin. Do you want to address that, please, Councillor?
Thank you. The housing officer has replied, but basically the scheme has been designed in response to the fact that on the common housing register for the area, over 50% of the people are requiring 1 bedroom accommodation. But your point is a valid point. The scheme says that it's addressing that need.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Peter James, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Catherine, for the presentation. Is there any requirement for solar panels to be added to this as we're trying to hit net zero by 2030?
There is no requirement. We don't have policy requirements. That do we know? Yeah.
We don't. There are. Compromise. Yeah, there's no policy requirement as such for that. There are permitted development rights. I'm not sure what we've done with those, Kath, whether we've removed the permitted development rights as a condition, but it is possible, or would be possible to fit solar panels.
I'm just thinking that, you know, being one bedroom and perhaps, you know, finances could be tight, but it would be a saving for the actual resident as well.
I was just checking whether Kath knew about the energy efficiency of them. I'd have to go and look. I don't think we know offhand, but it would be possible to fit solar panels. Yeah,
it seems an ideal position to do that at this moment in time, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peter James. Anyone else wanting to come in now? Councillor Gareth Jones, Vice Chair, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just wondering about the parking. Is there any requirement that we have electric charge units there, similar to what Councillor Peter was saying earlier about moving forward with energy efficiencies and everything? Thank you.
Was that referring to electric?
Charging.
Vehicle point charging. Do you want to answer? Yeah.
I've just had a message from one of the people concerned with the project. Solar panels will be fitted, and also she's saying infrastructure will be inserted. Sorry, Miss. But there's to be internal provision for EV charging. I think that's what the message just said. In terms of it being in accordance with policy with respect to Future Wales, which is policy 12, the need there is for 10% provision over 10% provision for new development, for new public parking. So as this is residential development, that requirement is not necessary.
Okay, thank you. Just I think, as Councillor Peter was alluding to, these are an opportunity that we can not insist, but ask for these provisions to be supplied, and it'll only be beneficial in the long term. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. With regards, just picking up on the two councillors' points there, Catherine. Just picking up on those few points with councillors with renewables. You said you had a message through just now from the developer.
It reads infrastructure only will be inserted for EV charging.
Right, infrastructure only. Going back to the solar panel side, will there be battery storage available with that? Because the export tariffs now are pretty poor.
We don't know.
We don't know. So I just wondered whether it was in the message or not.
Yeah. No, it's not mentioned. Again, this is sort of spread.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. It is indeed. Okay, Councillor Adrian Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just got one question about in the report about the contaminated land. Is that likely to be a risk in that, you know, it might be some remedial work, and it'll affect the whole area really, if that's highlighted? A little bit more information on that. What type of problems could be could it come across?
Obviously it's an existing residential area, but because the works will require demolition and groundworks digging into the ground, there is the possibility of disturbing mine gas. And I think it's the issue with mine gas that is the big concern. It doesn't necessarily mean there will be a problem, but obviously as a precautionary nature, the contaminated land officer is requiring the conditions to be attached.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. No other members wishing to speak, I'll put it to the vote. It is, Councillor Gareth Pugh, please. Councillor Gareth, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, it's not a planning consideration, but I think it sends the wrong message out when Powys are knocking down flats or buildings just to replace them with buildings. No private developer would be doing that. Just an observation, it is sending the wrong message out. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth Pugh. No one else before? No, okay. It has been proposed and duly seconded to go along with the officer's recommendation, which is one of conditional consent as set out in the update report. Those members wishing to go along with that, please indicate in the chat, which a voting slip will appear momentarily for you. Thank you. And there it is. Click on that, members, in the usual manner. And vote as you see fit. Thank you, Catherine, for that presentation.
Chair, I've got 11 votes. Councillor Gareth D. Jones. I don't seem to have a vote from you.
Apologies, I did vote. I'm for the application.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Chair, we've got 11 votes for, none against, and 1 abstention.
Okay, that meets with the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much. Moving on now to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the delegated list. Could I have a proposer and seconder to accept them, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth and Councillor Hyland-Hume. Thank you. Moving on to the planning protocol, to consider following revisions of the planning protocol, paragraphs 19.2, 19.39, 19.47.2, 19.69, 19.87, and it goes on. Pages 43 to 88. Taking us through this is Colin Edwards, Principal Legal Officer for this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, periodically members, particularly members who've been on planning committee for a while, will know that we bring to you suggestions for amendments, hopefully to improve the planning protocol, which is a living document and always liable to being bettered, if I can put it like that. We don't pretend that it's perfect, but overall, we think it covers most situations. But as they arise, if there is something that needs looking at, we will periodically bring it to you. And today we're going to look at basically two issues. The reduction of the minimum notice period for public speaking. Members will be aware that currently it's 4, and the proposal is broadly to reduce that to 3, which we think will help those who want to speak at committee, particularly when an agenda is published for the minimum period, which is 4 days before the meeting. It gives speakers, if they haven't decided until then, very little time in which to consider that. So reducing the minimum notice period to 3, we think will help that, particularly community councils, and there's been a particular issue with regards to that, I believe. The second issue, which I'll come to in a minute, is to catch applications by relatives and friends of planning officers, which may need to be referred to planning committee. That's not specifically covered in the planning protocol at the moment. And as I say, I'll come to that a little later. Now I'll go through the amendments very quickly, hopefully. And my glamorous assistant, Carol, will bring up the amendments on the screen, hopefully, as we come to them, and perhaps remind me if I manage to miss any pages out, please, Carol. So first of all, at page 3, we've just got an amendment to the title there, 19.42. To include or by a relative or close friend of such an officer. I'll come to the substance of that shortly. I think we then go on to page 13, which is the main part that, yep. Back to page 3.
Sorry, does that make it clear it's just planning officers that applies to, so it should be, or is it applying to all officers of the authority?
So look, 2. Officers or by relative or close friend.
I think it means all officers, doesn't it?
No, I think it just refers to planning, because at 19.141, that picks up applications submitted by relatives or friends of a, if I can put it like that, an ordinary officer, and that's a subjective judgment for the professional lead to decide. So that's, I think that's a fair point, actually. Do you think, Carol?
It's both, isn't it?
I'd say it's both, isn't it?
140 relates to off-planning officers, and 141 relates to any other officer within the council, within the senior leadership team. So it's covering both.
Yeah.
And would that senior leadership team include head teachers of schools? Because in my mind, they are senior leaders of the authority, but not in a central senior leadership team.
Yeah, so with the proposals, we're only proposing amendments to relatives and friends of planning officers, but the whole paragraph covers officers generally.
Yeah.
So hence the title, really. Yeah, you threw me there a minute. So if councillor Gareth's okay with that, we'll go on to page 13, back to 13, which specifies the amendment there of 4 clear days to 3 clear days. And as I say, the reason for that is to give speakers a little more time to decide whether or not to declare that they wish to speak at the committee. And in the past, I believe this has given particular problems for community councils who have tight time schedules with meetings and so on. So hopefully that will help them. And if we go on, those provisions roll out to other bodies that are entitled to speak at committee, such as when a councillor acts as not just a local representative, but a member representative. That's at page 57, member representative. And then we go on to page 19. Where there's a reference to 4 clear working days in relation to a councillor with a prejudicial interest, and that's just picking that amendment up there. And then we go on to page 22. Now, I suggested this amendment here because the planning protocol at the moment says that, I mean, you'll be aware that when a councillor submits an application, I come along to committee, and having looked at the papers and the planning file, I can confirm that the application has been processed normally. At the moment, the protocol says that confirmation should be in the report, but in practice, it's usually not possible to do that because of time constraints. So what I've tended to do is come along to committee and confirm at committee. So I'm just proposing that that's encapsulated in writing there, rather than in what happens in practice. So that's page 22. The next page, I think, actually goes to planning officers. Oh, there's page 31. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Carol. Page 31, obtaining the right to speak. Again, there's an amendment there to from 4 days down to at least 3 clear working days before the relevant committee. And the next page is 43. Page 32, thank you, Carol. Again, mopping up references to at least 4 clear days and amending those to 3 clear days in relation to town and community councils. Yeah, thank you, Carol. Goes on to the top of page 33. Four changes to 3. And then I think we go to page 43. And this is what we looked at right at the beginning, which is a reference to applications made by planning officers. A situation has arisen in the past where a relative or a close friend of a planning officer has made an application, and when we looked at the protocol, we could see that it wasn't specifically covered. So this is to cover the situation. of a relative or a close friend of a planning officer making an application. And as you'll see there, it will be up to Peter, the professional lead for planning, to determine whether the relationship is such to warrant the application being referred to planning committee. And then the planning solicitor would have to confirm that the application has been processed normally. So that echoes an application by a councillor. So I think that is the last amendment. And then there's just numbered changes on from there. So I'll take any questions from members.
Okay, who wants to open up discussion? Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think I just welcome the decision to reduce it from 4 days to 3 days for asking to speak. And when you're ready, Chair, I'm happy to move that we accept.
Thank you very much. Councillor Angela Davis, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think I agree with Councillor Gareth. It's good to have that extra day, can help a lot for people in bringing forward any comments they want to make. And I think I'm happy to approve those as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Angela. Is that a second? You're seconding the proposal, yeah?
Yeah, happy to do that, Chair.
Chair, before you take any more questions, Carol and I have been conferring, and we think we need to further amend the heading at page 43.
Okay.
Because as I've mentioned, this amendment only relates to relatives and friends of a planning officer, but the heading might be a little misleading and indicate that and this alludes to what Councillor Gareth was saying at the beginning. It alludes to relatives or friends, I think, the way it's written there. It refers to relatives or friends of any officer. So I think it needs to be amended. So it reads planning applications submitted by an officer or by a relative or close friend of a planning officer.
Oh, right, okay. Can we take that amendment now, or does it have to go back through?
No, I think if you take that amendment now, if those who proposed and seconded would incorporate that in their proposal.
Gareth E. Jones,
yeah, I'm happy to accept
that. Yeah. Councillor Angela, who's second?
Yep, likewise. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions from members before I put it to the vote, please? No. Okay. Would it be possible if we just took a vote if anyone objects to it? Could they raise their hand? Is that an appropriate way of doing it, I think? Okay, to accept we'll put it to the vote to accept the revisions set out in the report, which are pages 43 to 88. Those members wishing to go along with that, please remain silent. Those that do object, please raise your hand, please. I think that's unanimous that we accept them.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to the last item on the agenda, which is the development management performance. We promised that we would bring a report to committee every so often to check on performance of the planning committee. Today, Peter Morris, professional lead for planning, will take us through that report. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Just find the report. I haven't got a presentation, so I just pulled it up off the online agenda for committee. I'm a bit slow, would be my first comment. because the data relates to January, March. So I'm slow bringing it to you. We're in fact about to report very shortly on April to June data. So I'll be coming back again with a further update report in due course with the latest information. So just to point out, this is relating to that period, January to March, earlier this year. It draws on the data that we report to Welsh Government. We do so every quarter. All authorities across Wales do that every quarter. Welsh Government capture that data and it's actually published online on Welsh Government's website as well, the comparable data, so we can compare ourselves if we need to against other authorities across Wales. And I think we informed this committee about that previously. That data is up to date as well now on Welsh Government's website. It has been a little bit behind, but they've caught up as well. Okay, so if anybody wants to look, that there's further data there. In terms of workload, really, just run through it quickly, table by table. Table under paragraph 2.2 just shows what's been received in each quarter. As we go forward, you'll see that go up and down. It does vary. It's not always the same. So that quarter, the January to March this year, we have more applications received than we did in the earlier quarter. Okay, and that then in turn led to more determinations as well. The right hand column shows 374 determined in the quarter for those 3 months. Permissions, you'll notice, have gone up in comparison to the earlier quarter as well. Table below also shows in 2.3 shows number of withdrawn applications. So there's 70 applications withdrawn. If anybody's very eagle-eyed, in terms of what we carried forward from the previous quarter, it's 595. We're now taking forward 524. That's what we started April with. So officers had 524 applications. That's actually come down a little bit since. It does vary. I keep an eye on this sort of week by week to see where we are. This week we were just in the 400s, but I'm aware, for instance, that there's several in validation waiting to be validated at the moment. Okay, so those are the general sort of performance that are going on. Like we said before, we're probably one of the, in terms of applications received, we're generally in the top 3, if not 4th. We tend to trade places with Carmarthenshire in terms of application numbers, and it tends to be Swansea and Cardiff, the bigger authorities who have higher application numbers, but we're either 3rd or 4th in Wales as an authority. For that gives you an idea of the sort of size that we deal with. Average times for determinations, that's table 2.4, and it does. This one's harder to compare in my mind. Average for the top line there is major applications, and they're clearly more complicated applications. Sometimes we're able to deal with them quicker, sometimes not. It really depends on the nature of the application. We are, and we've spoken to you as a committee about this before, we've spoken recently to agents about this, doing more work and looking to front load applications more. We've had a conversation with the planning agents recently around single amendments only. So we are looking at a more rigorous approach there, trying to improve this performance measure. That was generally well received by agents, but the implication is applications coming to us need to be better. So we're very supportive around the pre-application work around that. I think the effort really does need to go in at that pre-application level, which then turns itself into a better quality submission, which when consultees then look at the application, they're generally happier with, and in theory, we should see the determination times improve. Okay, average times, it went out a little bit for every application. That's the second row in that table, 2.4. So it was 118. It's slipped out a little bit, which obviously we prefer not to see, but we'll see how we go going forward. It does depend what we're dealing with. I have to say that. I think what I looked at below in the text of the total that we determined, if you measure against Welsh Government's fair category, which is between 67 and 112 days, 252, and I think it was off the 374 were within that period. It's just we're inevitably we have some more complicated applications. I've listed there, I'm sort of aware that I'm just presenting numbers at times, and you might have suggestions for me around this. I'm keen that we give you some sort of outcomes as well. What are we permitting? Because I think numbers just bland in a way. They don't put any colour into what we're actually doing. So I've just listed 3 examples there of the majors that were determined. I think that the solar array one at Heartsease Knighton, that was a really quick decision. That one, it went through quickly, supporting a business there. So that was a positive decision. We've seen those are all approvals, those 3 I've quoted there. So affordable dwellings in Llandisilia, and then we had a hotel cum coffee shop application which was approved at Buttington Cross, just to the northern side of Welshpool, northern edge of Welshpool. So they give you an example of some of the major applications we've permitted. There were some refusals as also within the major, so that was just to be aware of. And again, I think that's important. Maybe I begin reporting some of those as well. Percentage of applications determined within time. So again, that's an All Wales measure. That measure includes any extensions of time that have been agreed with the applicant. Okay, so we have to formally agree those, and where we're given all that agreement is reached, and the application then is determined within that agreed time frame, it then counts as meeting that performance measure. So we've held steady there. Looking at that, we're doing well against that measure. So I'm pleased with that result. Majors, as I said just now, they generally take a little bit longer, but we're still above the 60% category or threshold that Welsh Government set for good in that. So I think there's obviously some room for improvement there, but I'm still happy with that as a result. Okay, it's dipped a little bit from the previous quarter, but we're still within that good category that Welsh Government give us.
How do Welsh Government come to that figure, Peter, of 60%? What determines that? I'm going to predict what they did is look back in time and then take an average
at performance over time. It's probably due a refresh, the figures from Welsh Government.
When was the last time that was updated?
I'm not sure if Gemma, any idea? No.
Was that before?
It's before I came into this role, so it's some time ago.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of IPUs since you've been in this role, so obviously that slows things down, doesn't it?
Yeah. So there's some indicators where Welsh Government is still saying things are being benchmarked. So okay, that's reliant on the data that we provide Welsh Government with. Okay, percentage of planning appeals. Well, in the quarter 3, we only had 3 appeal decisions in that quarter. So 2 out of 3, 67%. Same ratio, but in quarter 4 there were 9 appeals, 6 out of 9. So it's held. And we shouldn't be afraid of appeals either. I don't think. We share them with the committee. The appeal decisions, we learn from them as well. So again, that one's within the good category. Finally, just enforcement figures, overall figures there. What we're investigating is the top row. 84 days is set by Welsh Government. So the aim is always to investigate cases within 84 days of them being reported to us. Those are just numbers in the top line. So last quarter, in that January, March, there were 39 investigated. Most were investigated within the 84 days. I think as a team, we'd like to see them all investigated within the 84 days. Sorry, I'm just looking at average time at the bottom there. The speed of doing the ones that we did investigate has improved from the previous quarter. Okay. Investigation is just really the first stage of any enforcement case. Decision has to be reached at the end of that investigation stage as to whether further action is necessary. There is further measures around that once you've made that decision. It could be that the outcome of the investigation is that it would not be expedient or appropriate to undertake any action. What we find is acceptable. In other instances, it may be that we have to take further action because it's unacceptable. So that's the process, and then there's a separate measure for that. So I think I've provided you really with the headline figures. I'm very wary that it's figure heavy. Welcome any suggestions around that, and I want to report to this committee. I'm hoping you will finding it useful.
Yes.
I'm happy to change it and take ideas really from the committee.
I certainly find it useful, Peter. You don't have any figures with regards to Welsh Government averages on enforcement cases there?
I'd have to check whether that's.
I would think that would be a good addition there. I'll go to open up for discussion. Councillor Adrian Jones, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a little bit about the appeals. Peter mentioned that we get to know. I can remember once Peter reporting on one at a committee meeting. So are they circulated or what? Because I seem to. Well, I would like to know examples of why some are upheld, because on average, it's about a third of them, which to me sounds quite high, are upheld. So how do we get to know examples? Because like I say, I've only heard Peter discuss one at a committee meeting.
Yeah, we do report the decisions to committee, so there haven't been any lately that I'm aware of. So yeah, so the numbers are low. I must admit I can't remember all of the 9 of that quarter offhand. Some of them I can remember. I think I can remember one of the 3 and why it was dismissed. And it was a partial dismissal, that one.
Okay.
It was to do with a property in Llandrindod, and it was part dismissed. So partly upheld, but partly dismissed. I think we've obviously present them to committee, so we've got the opportunity to debate them whilst we're here in committee. So I would encourage that. They're not just to accept necessarily. I think are happy to report on that, and we can discuss them when we do report them with the committee, because I think we all learn from the committee as well as officers.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Adrian Jones. Councillor Angela Davis, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got 2 questions. So the first one, in the investigations, so it's 84 days. So that's 84 days to start an investigation?
No, what the system we've got, it's typical across probably the UK, is we require any alleged enforcement cases to be reported to us. We have an online form. It can be done sort of as an online reporting form, or there's a Word document that can be downloaded and emailed to us. So there's an option there. That form's important because it gathers the correct information. We've obviously got to have the right information to begin with to conduct the investigation. So as soon as that has been received, the clock really starts then. So that's day one of the 84 days. And then within that 84-day period, officer has to review the form, conduct a site visit, check planning history, and then there may be some discussion. They may actually take some action as well during that 84 days. They may not be clear about something, so they may need to go and gather further evidence. And the outcome is to arrive at a report, a decision, with the decision within it by the end of 84 days, which draws a conclusion around whether any further action is necessary or not. Most of our cases, I would suspect, I'm not sure if I know this offhand, or if you know, Gemma, would we find them probably not expedient for further action? I don't know whether we... Or resolved, yeah. It could be that the officer talks to the person that's undertaken the works that don't have planning permission, and they might resolve to actually apply for planning permission, for instance. So they may make a planning application, in which case the case is still held open because we want to see a satisfactory resolution, which is ultimately a planning permission. So, but that's how the 84 days work. It's really to arrive at that point of making or having reached an action. Where does this case go? Is it resolved? Should it be closed? Should it stay open and we undertake further action? Okay.
Good. Councillor Angela, would you like to come back? Are you satisfied with that answer?
Yeah, no, that's a very good answer, very thorough. Thank you very much. I did have a second question, if that's all right. Yeah. So my second question is, mostly we only hear about people complaining about planning, because if the planning's gone well and it's gone through, then people just get on with the work. So in the figures, how do we capture those people who they may have had their planning approved, but it's taken, in their opinion, too long? So the one thing I hear is that the planning department are slow to respond. And I don't know how to sort of respond to that myself. So I hear complaints that, you know, it's cost them as developers in terms of increased building costs or other costs because of the delay from planning. So how do we define that?
Yeah, I think part of this comes back to that, but there's several things probably in this, and it's a discussion for us all to have. If good applications come in theory, they should pass through the planning process quickly, because when we receive a planning application, we consult on that application and it goes out to a range of statutory consultees who then review it to check from their own perspective whether it's acceptable or not. Now, if an application is good quality and it's had that early pre-application involvement from all those relevant consultees in it and ourselves, in theory, the application should just pass through the process quickly, because the consultee will take a look at it and recognise that actually the application has responded to their earlier comments. So things tend to take longer when problems occur, when consultees review applications. That will then add time. We're very aware that when that happens, amendments are then invited to try and address those comments. Whilst that's going on, officers are receiving even more applications. So actually their workload is increasing. So what we're trying to do is put the effort into supporting that improved application arriving with us. So doing things like training with agents, offering training advice, putting out better advice on our website, better guidance. We probably need to do more, but it's all about trying to improve what's coming to us in the first place. Okay. I think another point I would make is around feedback. I think we want customer feedback as well. So, and I know that's something that's come that we're looking at the moment. We're all aware we've had an Audit Wales report, and I think we want to capture feedback from customers better. So we're looking at a system, potentially an online system where we can gather feedback. So I've probably missed things there. Gemma, I don't know if it's anything key you think I've missed from that.
No.
I think it's coming down to quality of application. I think we're going to take that more rigorous approach as well around amendments. And I think we want that responded to and supported, I think, generally, because I think that helps everybody. Applicants can resubmit. I think there is a judgment call in that. We're talking about discretion, probably through the principal officers here. If a decision is within easy reach, to my mind, it's probably sensible to give it a little bit of grace rather than making it go back through the whole process again. So I think in looking at single amendments, I think it's sensible also to have some discretion with that at the same time. But the other implication is I would imagine we'll see more withdrawn applications because we'll be inviting applications to be withdrawn. Where that's resisted, we could see more applications refused as well, because we are taking ultimately a tougher approach here to try and manage our workloads more effectively.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, so just the one thing you did say that you were seeking feedback from customers. Do you give feedback to applicants? So are you bold enough to say to applicants, actually, your application form didn't meet the mark? Do these people who complain understand that actually the reason it was slow is that they didn't apply in the correct process, if that's what you're saying?
Yeah, I think there's probably different types of applicant that we deal with. We've got a range. We do have planning agents operating within the county who are used by lots of individuals or companies, and we have a forum meeting with them, and we've discussed these. We had a workshop come forum about 3 or 4 weeks ago with them, where we discussed some of these issues with them. We've been discussing them for some time, so they're aware of that approach that we're pursuing. Generally, they were supportive of it as well. The other type of applicant we have is probably we have people out there that are making an application themselves as an individual, could be a homeowner, and they've never made an application before in their lives, so they're new to it. So I think with those, we have to show some sort of leniency as well, and help them through the process where we can. But what we can't do, I don't think, is keep allowing amendment after amendment. Generally, I'd be interested in Gemma's thought. To my mind, those type of applicants are going to be for the smaller things that generally should be easier to actually get approval for. So more complicated applications you would expect an agent to be involved, because they've got to organise so many different elements of a project, whether it's highways, whether it's biodiversity, you name it. It could be contaminated land, and it is very specialist there. So I think that's generally, in those circumstances, beyond the reach of those people that are doing this for the first time. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you see, in the short period of time since you've had the discussion with the agents, Peter, the applications that are coming forward now are more top-loaded and of a better quality? I know it's been a short period of time, but the ones filtering through.
Yeah, Gemma, can you? Is it probably too early?
Probably too early.
Being polite.
Yeah, it probably is too early at the moment to say that, so I wouldn't want to comment further at the moment.
That's fine. And regards to enforcement, obviously we've got that fantastic website now. really easy to use. We've all had a play around with it. When someone from the public or whoever it may be submits a complaint, let's say, through that website of needed, or they suspect enforcement is needed, is at every stage of the enforcement case that the officer picks up, whoever it may be, are they sending out updates to that person when they make the complaint? So like, is there a notification that that complaint has been logged and an officer's dealing with it? And then let's say now you say that an application has no further action. Are you sending out notifications to inform that person that no further action has been taken, or that they're going to the next stage, or whatever it may be? Is that something that you do?
Yeah, communication is important for us. I think we can always do more. I do get complaints around lack of updates, I must admit. So I think that's something. I think there's an expectation out there that we react instantly. And I can remember saying this when I came into this job. It's almost we're perceived at times to be like a blue light service, that we respond immediately. Well, we can't do that, unfortunately, and we're not alone here. I think there are certain things where we have to respond quickly, but we have to manage this with all our workload. So, but the communication issue is important. If that's not going right, I need to know about it. But when a case is logged and registered, there's an email goes out to whoever the complainant was, and that informs them who is dealing with the case, and their contact details are provided. Generally, when there is something to update, not before, the officer will then communicate that, and they need to communicate the outcome, that decision as well. So if there are improvements there, I think we're up for changing those and tweaking those and getting those better as well. So Gemma, missed anything?
Yeah, I think on top of that, it's something we've noticed and we're changing is the letter we send out to acknowledge it. We're going to make that a lot more clearer to those people, exactly perhaps the processes we have to follow and when we'll be in touch, just so they're aware of what's happening, I suppose, because unfortunately investigations sometimes can take quite a lengthy period, can include serving planning contravention notices, which obviously take a period of time. So I think we want to be better at perhaps communicating that at the start of what processes it'll now go through. So hopefully they understand a bit more, if we're not back in touch in a couple of days, what's happening as well.
Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, Councillor Howland-Hume, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just picking up on what Gemma just said then, it's about managing complainants' time expectations at the end of the day, because if they're not given that information early on, then that can impact on the officer's time as well. Peter, can I just ask, we have now got 2 officers, enforcement officers, is that right?
We've partly right. We did have 2. One has just left.
Oh dear.
So I'm actually interviewing end of this week,
right,
for replacements. I'm hoping to have 2 people back in position shortly. Okay,
because hopefully that can escalate, you know, the enforcement process potentially. Secondly, I'm delighted to hear that you've had a meeting with the agents with regards to the quality of submissions, because I have said it in this chamber on a couple of occasions, you know, the poor submissions that we've been given to read in advance. And the thing is, with quality submissions, you're going to have better efficient use of officer time, and potentially the determination could be a lot quicker as well. So great news on that. And staffing levels, where are you at with your staffing levels? What size are the caseloads? And, you know, do you feel that your officers are, that the caseloads are manageable to them?
I think caseloads is something we'll certainly manage. I probably am not going to say it in the public meeting, but I'm happy to have a chat afterwards where we are. Officer wise, we've just lost the principal, who's just left us. So that was Luke Jones. So I'm currently recruiting for a development management team leader at the moment, which would be a position that would sit below me, but above the principals, and be that first point of contact with the DM service. So fingers crossed we'll be successful recruiting there as well. Okay, if anybody's listening, job applications need to be in by Sunday this week. Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Councillor Highland Hume. Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. The first one, you mentioned about the time of making decisions. I think it'd be useful if you could split that between those applicants who'd actually taken pre-planning advice and those that hadn't. I think that'd be really useful to us. It'd also be useful to the applicants and their agents. The second one, you may not want to answer this question in public meeting, Peter. Do we inform the applicants in respect to the poor quality of their agents' submission?
Well, I think it's reflected probably in what happens with the decision on the application. I think at the end of the day, the applicant has to make their own personal decision as to whether they pursue the application themselves or appoint an agent. I haven't forgotten that you've raised that first point either around. I think it's probably one for me to take back again with the team. I'm not quite sure how we use our systems to record that, because we almost need a little star, don't we, to say that application had pre-application, and then we know have all the stars actually got a quicker decision period versus the ones that don't have that little star against them. I don't know if we can do that, but Gemma, one for us to follow up on.
Because I think that'd be really good for us as councillors to go back to our residents to actually say, look, if you do this, it may cost you an extra few quid, but you're going to get better advice, you know, whether it's worth actually putting the application in.
It's one thing I always advise my residents when they ask about planning is go pre-app every time and get yourself an agent as well. They're worth the weight in gold. Okay. Councillor Adrian Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask Peter to clarify something he mentioned earlier about withdrawal of applications? Are you saying that you're going to take a stronger stance than applicants withdrawing, then bring it back in? So I can think of one example as a retrospective one, and it just keeps coming back and forth. So are you going to put a limit on it, or what did you mention, please? Thank you.
But if an application, for whatever reason, isn't acceptable, there's two options really. It can either be withdrawn by the applicant, and then they can take it away and work on it, or it could be refused if they're reluctant to withdraw it.
Right.
We give them the refusal reasons that has to be written up. Could be brought to this committee, for instance, for decision making. Or the officer can decide if they're able under delegated authority, and it's the same outcome really. That the decision notice will set out the refusal reasons, and it's really those reasons then that the applicant would have to work or address if they're going to reapply for planning permission. So the easier route probably for officers is withdrawn applications. Because they don't have to prepare a report, but ultimately it's a decision that the applicant will make. So have I answered, Councillor Adrian, what you were trying to get from me?
Sort of, but I can think of one example. They keep putting it in and out, and it's a retrospective one. So, I mean, they're carrying on with something that hasn't got planning. It's costing them money, obviously, but you know, it's not getting to an end point, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, again, I can't really discuss specifics, but
no, I don't expect you to.
Clearly, the main comment from me there, it's retrospective, so that's starting from the wrong position in the first place.
Yes.
It's understanding the issues that you've got to look at the policy, for instance. It is all the training that we've given you as well. That has to be determined in line with planning policy, and other relevant material considerations. So if they've started something that doesn't fit policy, they're starting from the wrong point. So
Okay,
yeah, okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adrian. Any more questions for Peter, please? No. Okay, that report is just for noting, and as we say, they will be appearing periodically throughout our meetings of this year. Okay, that concludes our agenda for today. So I'd just like to thank you, members in the chamber, members at home, officers who are presented today, and members of the public watching and members of the press. Before I close the meeting, Carol, could we have the date of the next meeting, please?
Yes, Chair, the next meeting's on the 10th of August.
Thank you very much. If members could hang on after we finish the meeting, we just have a few points to bring up for you. Okay, so therefore I close this meeting. Thanks.